But she chose not to be here.
Judge, can you hear me? Oh, okay.
Blake Lively's trial judge just stormed out after a new victim dropped receipts about attempted murder charges from 2 years ago. Yep, Blake's mess just got homicidal. And no, this isn't an exaggerated drama. This is the actual legal chaos playing out like an episode of some deranged courtroom reality show. The judge has officially had enough of the daily circus, the side plots, and the PR stunts, because the actual accusations are getting buried under celebrity nonsense. It all went to hell the second the judge slammed his gavel and walked out of the courtroom. Mid-hearing, mind you. We're talking about a federal judge here, not some sleepy bailiff in a cable courtroom drama. Blake Lively's defamation circus took a full 180 when a surprise witness, a former employee, now calling herself a survivor, was pulled to the stand. And from that moment forward, it became clear this was no longer about PR damage control. It was about real damage, real scars, and one hell of a hidden history. So what happens when a judge storms out in real life? You brace yourself for trials that stop being theatrical and start becoming dangerous. The woman who triggered this eruption was not on any publicized witness list. No court docket, no leaks to TMZ, no hints. She appeared like a courtroom grenade, courtesy of Justin Baldoni's pitbull lawyer, Brian Friedman, and testified under oath about events that, frankly, left the entire room frozen. She described how, while working as Blake's personal manager, she was verbally degraded, emotionally terrorized, and yes, physically attacked. The highlight? Blake allegedly threw a wine glass at her during a meeting meltdown, leaving her with 9 stitches on her right shoulder. 9 stitches, and not one police report. Curious, isn't it? And if a wine glass can turn into a weapon, what else has been buried under the designer rugs of celebrity power? Her testimony didn't stop at flying glass and verbal abuse. According to her, the aftermath was even more disturbing than the incident itself. Just hours after receiving medical attention, she was allegedly handed a non-disclosure agreement by Blake's brother. Yes, the same Alex Lively who served as CEO of Blake's now-defunct lifestyle company. The document, disguised as an emergency health resolution, included a 5-figure compensation package that was only valid if she signed on the spot. You read that right. Get injured, sign here, take the money, and disappear. No questions, no press, no career. But how many careers were crushed before this one finally screamed loud enough to echo in a courtroom? The judge, up to that point, had shown incredible restraint throughout the trial, watching both sides spar over influencer reputations and TikTok analytics like it mattered more than the law. But this witness? She cracked the illusion. She didn't just expose a crime, she exposed a system, a layered mess of hush money, power imbalances, and PR gaslighting. And that's when the judge snapped. "This is no longer a civil matter," he reportedly said before storming off. The court was adjourned in pure chaos, lawyers panicking, media blocked, and not a soul pretending it was just another day in court. So if this isn't just a civil matter anymore, are we looking at criminal charges next? More importantly, the judge's meltdown wasn't random. Legal experts suggest it might have been a strategic move, a way to remove himself temporarily due to potential judicial conflict. Why? Because if discovery documents had been withheld or altered to prevent this witness from being known to the court, that's obstruction of justice. And obstruction of justice means someone's about to get disbarred. Not Blake, of course. She's too busy rehearsing shocked facial expressions. But her legal team? They might be rehearsing apologies to a federal ethics board real soon. And let's be real. If lawyers are playing dirty, who's really on trial here? Blake Lively or the broken legal machine propping her up? Welcome to the skeleton closet Blake Lively really hoped you'd never open. The one labeled business venture. For those who remember her glittery lifestyle brand from a few years back, it looked like a Pinterest board on steroids. Candles, linen napkins, and curated photos of Blake making homemade jam. But beneath all that artisanal aesthetic, a toxic wasteland of manipulation, fear, and unhinged tantrums, with her very own brother, Alex Lively, conveniently installed as CEO. That's right, it wasn't just a family affair, it was a dictatorship wrapped in a wellness label. But when your PR brand is organic, and your leadership style is militant, what exactly are you selling? Peace or control? Multiple former employees are now speaking out, and not in cute little Medium articles. We're talking depositions, subpoenas, and courtroom affidavits that read more like survival memoirs. According to them, Blake's leadership style could be summed up as micromanage, menace, repeat. Every mistake was a catastrophe. Every correction, a humiliation. And if you dared to question the Queen Bee, you were publicly shamed in meetings that felt more like live executions. Oh, and there was screaming. So much screaming, one assistant reportedly wore earplugs just to survive 9 to 5. When a wellness brand gives its staff PTSD, maybe the brand wasn't about wellness at all. Then there's the infamous wine glass incident. Not a rumor, not a whisper. A documented act of violence now central to the ongoing trial. One employee, who had just mixed up vendor receipts, said Blake lost it. She allegedly hurled a crystal wine glass directly at her, slicing her shoulder open and sending her to urgent care. And just 2 hours later, she was sitting in Alex Lively's office signing a medical NDA under pressure. The offer: stay quiet, take the check, and pretend it was all just a kitchen accident. You can't make this up. But clearly, someone tried to. How many kitchen accidents come with legal paperwork and hush money envelopes? And here's where it gets even darker. Alex Lively, the brother/CEO, is now officially under investigation for misusing company funds to finance illegal non-disclosure payouts. That's right. The money used to bury employee injuries and trauma didn't come from Blake's personal stash. It came straight out of the company budget, meaning investors were unknowingly funding a cover-up. Some whistleblowers allege that at least 6 settlements were processed this way, all labeled as wellness benefits in the books. Creative accounting? Sure. Criminal? Very likely. So when does creative accounting become corporate fraud? And how many Livelies does it take to run a cover-up? In the end, what's truly disturbing isn't just the abuse itself, it's the fear that kept it all sealed for years. Employees didn't just sign NDAs, they signed away their mental health, their reputations, and their right to speak out. The victim we saw in court last week, she wasn't alone. She was just the first to crack through the facade. And judging by the silence that followed her testimony, that courtroom isn't ready for how deep this rot goes. Because when victims finally speak, after years of silence, the echoes tend to shatter more than just glass. If courtroom trials were chess matches, Brian Friedman just sacrificed a pawn and flipped the whole board. With zero pre-warning and no press leaks, which is basically unheard of in a celebrity case, he introduced a surprise witness that changed the entire trajectory of the trial. She wasn't just another disgruntled ex-employee. She was the matchstick Blake never thought would spark. An ex-manager, gagged by an NDA, silenced by shame, and now ready to drag every ugly truth into the light. The moment she took the stand, the temperature in that courtroom dropped by 20 degrees. When a lawyer gambles with silence and wins, who else is about to lose everything? Her testimony wasn't emotional, it was surgical. She spoke with the clarity of someone who had rehearsed every syllable for years, waiting for the one moment someone might finally listen. Verbal abuse? Constant. Physical threats? Allegedly frequent. And yes, the wine glass incident was confirmed, down to the scream that followed, and the exact words Blake used. "You're replaceable. Don't test me." A room full of attorneys, press, and onlookers stared in disbelief. Because if that's what she said to a manager, what did she say to interns? And if this is how Blake treats employees, how much worse is it behind closed doors when the cameras are off? But here's the legal bombshell. The witness was paid off. Not just in private. She was offered a 6-figure settlement framed as part of something disturbingly titled an Employee Injury Confidentiality Clause. In plain English, get hurt, get money, and get lost. That clause alone could violate federal labor laws, not to mention ethical boundaries so blurry they might as well be abstract art. And remember, this wasn't revealed through investigation. It came straight from the witness's mouth, under oath, in front of a live court. What kind of company needs injury-specific silence clauses in their HR files? The effect? Catastrophic. The judge, who up until this moment had tolerated every PR maneuver and celebrity smirk, erupted. He didn't just criticize Blake's team, he called it out as disgusting manipulation of corporate authority. That's not courtroom language, that's a cannon blast. Then, in a move so rare it sent shockwaves through legal circles, he stood up, declared the hearing compromised, and stormed out. No adjournment, no sidebar, just rage and a slammed door. When a judge leaves the room, what does it say about the people still sitting inside? This was more than a legal ambush, it was a controlled explosion. One woman, one testimony, and the carefully stitched seams of Blake Lively's image began to rip. Brian Friedman didn't just bring a surprise witness, he brought a wrecking ball. And now the court, the press, and the entire country are asking one question that even Blake's PR team can't bury anymore. What else is coming? And who's next on the stand? Let's get one thing straight. Judges don't just walk out. This isn't a high school debate club where someone gets flustered and leaves to collect their thoughts. A federal judge storming out mid-hearing is a legal earthquake. And yet, that's exactly what happened when the surprise witness exposed Blake Lively's alleged history of abuse, cover-ups, and strategic payoffs. Legal experts across the country weren't just shocked. They were scrambling to figure out what it could mean. Because in judicial terms, that's not a tantrum. That's a flare gun shot into the sky. So was it a breakdown? Or was it a signal that something far uglier is about to surface? According to multiple courtroom analysts, the judge's departure wasn't about emotion, it was about obligation. Reportedly, he left the bench to immediately consult federal ethics advisors. Why? Because what the witness revealed may have completely invalidated the structure of the entire case. Think about that. Months of preparation, legal strategy, and procedural hearings, all possibly compromised by hidden evidence, deliberate suppression, or worse, outright manipulation of the discovery process. If Blake's team did bury witnesses, testimonies, or financial documents, this isn't just civil misconduct. This is tampering. And if the foundation of this trial is cracked, how much longer until it all collapses into mistrial territory? Some legal commentators are now whispering the big, ugly word that no one in a courtroom wants to hear: mistrial. If it turns out that Blake's lawyers withheld critical documents or scrubbed mentions of this victim during discovery, it could trigger motions to invalidate the current proceedings entirely. And let's be real, nobody walks out of a courtroom because someone made an unexpected claim. Judges sit through murder trials. This was different. This was a judge realizing he might be presiding over a farce and refusing to be the fall guy. But if we're talking mistrial, who benefits more from a do-over? The accused or the accusers? Now, here's where it gets darker. That testimony didn't just expose PR sloppiness or mean boss energy. It opened a legal can of worms that now includes potential criminal charges. Blake isn't being tried criminally yet, but the moment her ex-employee described physical assault, coercion, and forced silence through settlements, things shifted. If financial records match her claims, prosecutors could explore charges ranging from fraud to battery to obstruction. That walkout may have been more than ethical. It may have been the judge's way of hitting pause before the entire thing escalated into a federal mess. What happens when a civil trial unexpectedly opens the door to criminal prosecution? Simple. Everyone starts sweating. The aftermath? Total lockdown. The courtroom was immediately cleared. Journalists were escorted out. The victim's testimony was sealed for judicial review. That's right, sealed. Not redacted, not summarized, sealed. Only top judicial officials and ethics panels have access. Why? Because if even one line of that statement is proven true with corroborating evidence, it could detonate Blake's entire legal defense. The judge didn't walk out in shame. He walked out to protect the system from imploding on his watch. So the real question now is, when that sealed testimony is finally unsealed, who will still be standing? Behind every polished celebrity brand is a war room, and Blake Lively's, it turns out, might be more house of cards than home decor. A whistleblower leak from inside her own legal camp has exposed the machinery that kept her scandal-proof for years. A pipeline of NDAs, payouts, and legal gymnastics that would make a mob fixer blush. Between 2018 and 2022, at least 12 separate hush settlements were allegedly paid out. Not severance, not resignations. These were hush deals, engineered to erase complaints, silence victims, and bury reputational landmines before they could explode. So if silence has a price, how much has Blake Lively really spent to keep the world quiet? The real kicker? These weren't rogue checks from a paranoid actress. According to leaked emails, the entire operation was reportedly coordinated by her PR firm. Yes, the same team responsible for placing puff pieces about her parenting style and red carpet looks was also helping manage witnesses. Legal shielding came from her longtime entertainment attorney, Mark Rain, who allegedly helped frame the settlements as exit packages or creative realignments. One leaked clause even referred to an assault claim as a discomfort-related resignation. That's not just spin, it's perjury with glitter. At what point does a publicist stop doing damage control and start enabling corporate coercion? Some of these settlements were technically legal, but ethics, morality, a complete joke. Several are now under review for potential violations of California's employment coercion statutes, which prohibit forced silence in exchange for pay when physical or psychological harm is involved. One former employee claimed she was threatened with defamation countersuits if she ever went public. Another signed away her medical rights after being injured, just to avoid career suicide, according to her sworn statement. If these cases hold, Blake's financial firewall just turned into a legal tripwire. And if one of these settlements goes to court, how many more will follow like dominoes? But here's where the house of cards really starts to wobble. A new subpoena is targeting Blake's accountant. Why? Because those hush payments were allegedly processed under medical reimbursement categories, a trick used to disguise hush money as health expenses. If proven, that's not just unethical, it's potential tax fraud, and opens the door for the Department of Justice to get involved. And guess what? They already are. Sources close to the case confirm an active DOJ inquiry is underway, and rumors are swirling about a second grand jury forming to probe Blake's corporate past. So when hush money becomes wire fraud, who ends up paying? Blake, her brother, her team, or all of the above? This isn't just a celebrity scandal anymore. This is corporate malpractice, legal manipulation, and a full-blown federal spotlight on what was once just a lifestyle brand. Blake Lively wanted to sell curated peace, candles, cookbooks, and calm. But what she may have actually built is a fortress of silence powered by fear and funded by fraud. And now, as subpoenas fly and sealed transcripts loom, the machine that protected her for years is collapsing from the inside out. So here's the final question. How do you curate your way out of a federal investigation? If you thought Blake Lively's courtroom confidence was unshakable, you haven't seen what happens when her team gets blindsided by the truth. Following the victim's brutal testimony, the energy in Team Lively's corner flipped from smug to scrambled in record time. Lawyers who once looked like they were prepping for Vogue covers were now whispering furiously, ducking into side rooms and giving each other looks that screamed, "We're screwed." Notes were flying, laptops were snapping shut. At one point, a junior associate was spotted Googling, "Can a judge walk out mid-trial?" When your legal strategy turns into frantic damage control, the verdict may already be writing itself, but nothing screamed panic louder than the leak that followed. An internal email that read, "Make sure the NDA doesn't link to Alex's side business." Smooth. Nothing says we have nothing to hide, like scrambling to disassociate your CEO brother from a document tied to an injured employee's silence. The email, now submitted as evidence, strongly suggests that Team Lively wasn't just preparing for a lawsuit. They were preparing to scrub the past. And unfortunately for them, Brian Friedman showed up with industrial-grade spotlight. If you have to erase your brother's name from a legal document, maybe he shouldn't be on the payroll. or the crime scene. And then came the paralegal fumble of the decade. Right before the session break, courtroom tech logs flagged an attempt to recall multiple files from the defense's secure drive, an operation that someone clearly thought wouldn't raise alarms. Well, it did. The files? Allegedly related to previous employee complaints, hush settlements, and emails between Blake and her PR agency discussing strategy for suppression. That's not litigation prep. That's a cover-up in progress, one that failed in full view of the court. If your first instinct after bombshell testimony is to delete files, maybe you're not defending innocence. You're erasing guilt. Now, in a desperate PR pivot, Team Lively tried something even uglier. They subtly suggested that the victim was mentally unstable. The result? Legal whiplash. Within 24 hours, 3 new subpoenas were issued. One for the leaked email thread, one for internal communications regarding settlement structures, and one reportedly for Blake's financial disclosure amendments. The message from the court was loud and clear. No more games, no more glossy distractions, and no more hiding behind PR spin. This is a trial now, not a photo shoot. So, how many more legal bodies are buried in Blake's empire, and how many subpoenas will it take to dig them all up? Let's talk about the man who just flipped this trial from celebrity gossip to corporate warfare, Justin Baldoni. While Blake's team spent months portraying this case as a personal feud, Baldoni's legal team was playing a long, brutal game of chess. And now, it's checkmate. Because after the victim's testimony blew the lid off Blake's NDA empire, Baldoni's side didn't flinch. They smiled. Why? Because this wasn't just a victory. This was the plan. According to insiders, Friedman didn't just stumble on this witness. He timed her like a tactical airstrike. When your legal strategy includes nuking your opponent's foundation, what's left standing for them to defend? Baldoni's $400 million defamation countersuit, once considered aggressive posturing, suddenly looks like a very real and very justified claim. The value isn't just based on reputation. It's tied to actual investor loss, stalled productions, and multi-platform distribution deals torpedoed by Blake's original lawsuit. What started as a he said, she said, has now turned into a full-blown financial meltdown, and Blake might end up footing the bill. Not out of her purse, but out of whatever's left of her brand, endorsements, and licensing rights. If your legal attack was just a smokescreen, what happens when the smoke clears and the fire's in your own house? Now, with every leak, subpoena, and courtroom explosion, Baldoni edges closer to something no one thought he'd get: total vindication and a $400 million payout. Blake, once untouchable, is now dangling at the edge of a cliff her own team carved out. And Baldoni? He's just watching the whole empire crumble, brick by golden brick. So, here's the question nobody in Hollywood wants to ask. Did Blake Lively just hand her entire legacy to Justin Baldoni on a silver platter?